Bienvenidos a la lección 20 para la primaria superior. N-words, B-words. Did you know that there's an N-word in China? Now, they don't think of it as an N-word, but almost any American who only speaks English would. I know a young woman, she was returning from a trip there for some organization, college girl, and she said that the Chinese women would go shopping out in the open-air market, and they'd be looking over all the items out there on display on tables and things like clothing, books, cell phones, etc. And she told me that these Chinese women who spoke Mandarin Chinese, she said they kept pointing at one thing and then another, and they kept saying, nigga, nigga. And this girl thought that was so funny. Now, anybody from America who just speaks one language, and I don't care what their color is, would probably have the same reaction as her. Why are these people saying nigga, nigga while they're shopping? They're just pointing at them. Well, words don't mean much until you put other words around them, or until you put pictures or actions around them, and sometimes just until you know who's using those words. If I say red, for instance, you're going to think of the color red, probably. If I see the word red, I may think of a net, even the internet, because R-E-D to me looks like red, which means net or internet. But if I say Denise turned red, you and I are going to think that she's embarrassed or angry. And if I say the light turned red, well, you're probably going to think of a stoplight. Look at this word. When people of any color who only speak English see this word, they think of black people. Does that word look like Negro to you? Well, I only ask you that because that's not the first thing I think of. But all of my students, white or black, they always think it says Negro. And all my black students have always started giggling. But in the Spanish-speaking world, we don't look at that word that way. To us, it's negro. When the American college student was listening to the women in China as they shopped, she heard them saying nigga, nigga because she comes from a different society. She interprets sounds differently, of course. But once you know that nega is just a filler word, a word to fill the moment, like, well, there's nothing funny about it. You wouldn't laugh if a group of Chinese shoppers were at a mall where you go and they were saying, it's the same thing, you see, and all languages have filler words. So, nigga to the untrained American ear, but nega to the trained ear. Spanish has filler words too. One is este. Este can mean this, as in este muchacho, este libro, this boy, this book. Este is often used also to mean, let's see, este, nega, nega. Now let's go back to negro. A couple of dark people from a tribe in Mexico were visiting here in Indianapolis. These people speak a language of their own native tribe, and they also face prejudice from some other Mexicans for being who they are. Anywhere you go in the world, you're going to find this. People, I don't care whether it's race or whatever, there are going to be differences that make people uncomfortable with each other. These people try really hard to keep their tribal language a secret because they know lots of Latinos have prejudice toward people who speak other languages. And it's the same thing in the U.S. And I don't care whether you're talking about white or black or green people. Language stirs up a lot of discrimination, a lot of bad feelings, a lot of prejudice. Race is just one other thing. In fact, the people I'm talking about, they're often the very same color. You have to get this idea out of your head that everything's about race, because it's not. And I'm trying to get you used to the bigger world. It's easy for Mexicans and for me to tell that these people from this one tribe are from that tribe just by looking at them. Not because they're just as dark as many of the other people living around them. They have certain other things about them that look different. And oftentimes we can tell by the way they speak Spanish. Now, they were inside a restaurant, two of these people that I'm telling you about. Actually, it was this one woman and her brother. They were inside of a restaurant. So just imagine now, they're inside of a restaurant in Indianapolis, Indiana, United States of America. They're a long way from home, and they do look different. And they're speaking Spanish. A man in the restaurant hears them using the word right here, this word right here. He pulls out his cell phone and he calls the police. Just imagine you're the policeman responding, and you go into the restaurant and a man tells you, these people are talking about me. And if they got something to say, they need to say it to my face. They're racists. And the policeman looks at these people and he sees, well, you know, they're just as dark as this other guy. Now, just imagine you're these two people a long way from home. And you're thinking, uh-oh, what is going to happen to me? What kind of trouble have I gotten into? And how has this happened? Right away, the word spreads throughout the Latino community that people who don't know any Spanish, they can start a lot of trouble for you that you don't even deserve. The fact is, the N-word in Spanish is frequently used to mean my dear, my darling, even my friend. And we do not call it the N-word. But the N-word in Spanish is used by both dark and light Spanish speakers. Now let's look at a B word, bitch. Dog breeders use the word freely. My sister-in-law, my family, some of my family, they talk about bitches and studs because they raise and sell dogs. My sister-in-law will say, that one over there is a bitch. Well, you know, if you and I use the word bitch just any old way we want, you know, it doesn't work. And so it has to, just like these other words, nega and negro, all of these things have to be taken in context. That means according to everything else that's going on around them. You can't just say, I'm offended by that word. Well, okay, you can be offended, but there's no need to be. Now, I had some Cubans visiting me, and as I was talking with them, I used the word bicho, which means insect or bug. These Cuban visitors told me some Puerto Rican friends of theirs said it's a bad word, bicho. So what's happening there is that these Puerto Ricans have so much American influence on their island that they knew the word bitch in English, but of a different meaning. And so to them, bicho was very close to that, and so they associated bicho with bitch. But that's a different meaning. So the Cuban visitors thought that, well, you know, maybe here in the U.S. we shouldn't be using the word bicho. But all of us who speak Spanish, except for some Puerto Ricans, we use the word bicho. It's a B word. That's just fine. Just as N-words can be just fine. It's always depending on who you're with. Don't be too critical of the guy who overreacted in the restaurant. We have millions of Americans who think people are talking about them when they're speaking in another language. I think the guy would have apologized if someone had explained to him that he was the one who was prejudiced and paranoid. If you want to be a great world citizen in this country and beyond, every morning when you get up and you get dressed, put on your thick skin too. Put on a tender heart and thick skin. It's been good being with you. Hasta luego.